Well, Nigeria is officially in recession. But what bothers most on the minds of Nigerians is that at the time of campaigning, the Buhari government on the flagship of the APC doled out loads and loads of promises in its campaign manifesto. In fact, the party at that time adopted its mantra as change. That was its central campaign theme. Disenchanted by the ruling People's Democratic Party at the time for the failing of security and socio-economic challenges that plagued the country at that time, Nigerians went ahead and voted in the Buhari government on the platform of the All Progressives Congress. But the question now is, did the APC bite more than it could chew? And what happens to all of those promises? Where did the permutations go wrong? Should Nigerians accept their fate as it is and take the ride through Economics 101? Well, let's begin the discussion properly. Right now, joining me from our Abuja studio is Ismail Ahmed. He's the national leader of the APC Youth Forum. Many thanks for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Mr. Ahmed, officially, the Nigerian economy is in recession. Nigeria is in recession. But there were a lot of promises made when the Buhari government was coming into power. There were promises for more jobs for the unemployed, food for the hungry man, security. Now that all the indices are pointing downwards, should Nigerians take their fate as business as usual? Or in what manner does the government hope to at least fulfill a part of the promises made in its manifesto?
Well, I think first of all, it is most of the promises that were made by the APC during the campaign will still be fulfilled. Most of them will still be fulfilled. I think we came in at a bad time, and the president has said as much. We were dealt a bad hand. We came in when the prices of crude oil was nosediving across the world. It was a global problem. And then we had insecurity problem that has shrunk our ability as a country to our output to a number that has not been seen in a while. So we had these challenges coming in. We had almost an empty treasury. So there were a lot of problems and a lot of bad situation that we found ourselves in when the government came into office. Nevertheless, we came in the mid of 2015. It was May 2015. We had a budget that was still in the offing at that time. That was passed by the PDP government, by the last administration. We had to let it, run its own course before we presented our own budget, what the president did in December of 2015. And after, back and forth, we finally passed the budget, and the budget was signed in May of this year. So this is the first budget that the APC owned and is going to implement itself. And most of the promises that we made during the campaign were encapsulated in this 2016 budget as well. Our revenue estimate was very clear. We had a 6.6 trillion naira budget. It's something that we still intend to fulfill some of these promises. The conditional cash transfer. We've already opened a portal. It's called the N-Power portal for job creation and training for graduates and uneducated young people. So there are a lot of things that we want to do. Now, recession in itself is just having 2 quarters of negative growth, where the sum total of all the products that was produced within the country it has declined significantly, which it has. There's no doubt about that. But if we begin to implement the budget, hopefully, we have a lot of liquidity coming into the hands of people. We're hopeful that we might be able to turn it around. We are in a bad situation, there's no doubt about that. And no one is going to lie to you that things are rosy right now.
Just a moment,
is it
Mr.
what
Ahmed.
we expected? No.
Okay, if I may comment,
Is it
Mr.
where
Ahmed.
we want to be? No.
Mr. Ahmed, you say the budget will still be implemented, but the time is short. On a budget of 6.3 trillion naira, there's supposed to be an expenditure of about 2 trillion naira, only about 250 million or thereabouts has been expended so far. The time is short. How possible, how feasible is it for this budget to be implemented when the second half of the year is already fast spent? How possible is it?
Well, we will implement the most we can within the period that we have, that I can assure you of. We have liquidity problem. That is a known fact. We have monies are in short supply, and most of the states have been given bailouts, like you mentioned earlier. But for the remaining part of the year, the liquidity that the government has will be released to the ministries and the MDAs, and we will mobilize to work, and then we will make sure that what we can achieve within the period that we have with this year, we'll be able to do it. And once that is done, I think you'll be able to see an uptick on the side of getting out of the recession.
Okay, if you listen to what the Minister of Budget and National Planning had to say, he seemed particularly hopeful that the third quarter of the year would end on a positive note if the government diversifies into other sectors such as agriculture, solid minerals and all whatnot. But economists say that if the first 2 quarters of the year end negatively, there's a high possibility that things will also end in that manner for the second half of the year, and that's the third quarter and the fourth quarter. What is the Buhari government going to do differently from what it's already doing to bring about this positive change?
I think what it's already doing is should be good enough. Like I said, and like you mentioned that the Minister of Budget and National Planning mentioned, we are hopeful that there will be a turnaround. We're hopeful that once you have a lot of funds and liquidity going into the economy, there's going to be an uptick. Consumer confidence has fallen down. It's part of recession as well. Once you can have monies flowing into the economy, the consumer confidence will go up. People will be able to purchase certain things. So we might be able to see a positive note at the end of the third quarter. That is all our hope. Yeah, economists have their way of projecting a lot of stuff. I'm not going to argue with that because I'm not an economist, but as a realist, I understand the fact that once you have this monies coming into the economy, things would.
I'd like to take you up on what you said. You said what it's doing is good enough. What is it doing that couldn't 1 year or over 1 year getting into the second year in office? The Naira ended today at the interbank market at about 330 Naira. What it's doing is, what the government of the day is doing is good enough. Wasn't able to bring about any uptick in the past 2 quarters. So what are those things that are good enough that will bring about the change for the average man, not in the books?
I can't hear you.
What is you said what the Buhari government is doing now is good enough. If what the government is doing now is good enough, how come almost 2 years down the line in office, things have plunged, nosedived, and you seem to have so much faith that if it goes along in the same direction, things will improve for the better? The Naira ended today particularly low at the interbank market against the dollar, 330 Naira. That's an all-time crashing.
Did you say almost 2 years?
1 year, one year, well, 1 year, this is the way, it's way in past its first year into the second year.
well, it's certainly not almost 2 years. It's just a little over a year, and I'm not saying that is, that is not long enough for a lot of things to start showing. But nonetheless, this is the first time we're implementing our own budget, like I mentioned. From May last year to the end of December, all through to, I think, March or April, we're implementing the budget of the last administration. We are going to begin to implement our own budget now. We've signed it into law in May. Most of this plans that we had to diversify the economy vigorously that the Buhari administration has is contained in this 2016 budget. And hopefully we're going to see a change in it. So the plans are there. The implementation will kickstart immediately. And hopefully that we might be able to see some changes.
Okay, before we take a moment, I'd like to ask you, with the paucity of funds and the cash crunch, how implementable is the 2016 budget?
As much as the liquidity will allow us to implement it. It's a bad situation. It's a bad outlook. No one can lie to you about that. The economy is in a bad shape. There's no doubt about that. But we are hopeful that we'll be able to turn things around, God willing.